guys. All right. I am just doing this kind of off the cuff, but I've been posting a lot about human design, so I thought it would only be fair if I did a little bit of explanation about it. So what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to post about human design, and I've got my chart. I've got some other types of charts. So if you go and you just Google human design and then you put in your birthday, you're going to get a chart, and it's going to look really confusing. All right, hold on one second. There we go. All right, so I am going to share my screen. And we're going to go to my tab. All right. Okay, so here we have, now I'm going to pull up myself first. So this is me. And I know this looks super confusing. The one you've probably seen is, it looks a little more like this. So this is just a smaller version. So what I'm going to use this bigger one to just give you some context. So what a human design chart is it's a combination of the zodiac signs. So you can see here all the zodiac signs. And then these gates here are the I Ching. So you're combining the zodiac, the I Ching, and then you see this person here has all these different centers. Actually, this is me. And each of these centers is a chakra. So it's taking four different. So you've got zodiac, I Ching, chakra, and also the book of life is in here as well. So if you take a look at this chart, what you can see is, so here's the I Ching. So this is gate 1 in the I Ching. And the I Ching has 6 lines. And they can be either yang or yin yang lines. Gate 1 is all yang. So they're straight across, and there's 6 lines like that. And to read this in order, you go from gate 1 to gate 43, and you see how that top lane is now broken, and then to gate 14, and then that breaks move down, and then you go all the way around, and it's a different order. And when you have 6 lines with 2 line types, you can get 64 different gates. So when you get all the way around here to gate 2, it's all yin, and then they start adding it back on. So that's the I Ching. And for me example, if you see this symbol here, it means sun, and that's, most people know what their zodiac sign is. That's the day that that's your birthday. So I'm a Leo. So we can see that my sun is in gate 7. And if you look here, gates 29, 4, 7, 33, and 31, and just a tiny bit of 56 all land in the zodiac sign Leo. So if you're a Leo, you will have your sun in one of these gates. Okay, sometimes that just gives, I'm going to move away from this complicated one, but that for me gives a little bit of grounding. Okay, so now we'll go back to this one where it's not quite as complicated. So the 2 sides of the chart. This is called the mind, and this is what's conscious, and this is the body or the design side, and this is unconscious. So if you were to go along here, and you see how I showed you that Leo was at gate 7. So here's my personality sun, and that's in gate 7, and I'm a Leo, so that makes sense. They throw in the earth, and the earth is always opposite to the sun. So that's like a bonus planet that you get here. But then if you go through the rest, here's North Node, South Node, Moon, and then Mercury, and you work all your way to Pluto. So if you actually looked at the gates these were in, they would correspond, like gate 40 is in Virgo. So all of these this will correspond completely to your birth chart. So what human design adds, because I already hasn't added enough. So everybody, most people kind of know what their horoscope sign is. So this is the whole birth chart. This part, the design part, is when your personality or your soul or your spirit was formed, and that happened 88 days before you were born. So 88 days before your birthday, this chart got made. So if you look at them separately, so this is me before I was born, 88 days before I was born. So different planets were in these different gates, and the gates, they end up in these chakras as well. Like I said, it's a little complicated, and if you don't get it the first 100 times you hear it, don't worry about it. This is the day I was born. So we've got gate 7. My son was in gate 7, and the gates have homes in all the chakras. So gate 7 happens to live in this love chakra. This is the G center or the identity center. So because this 7, I have that, it lights up this place in that center. Okay, clear as mud. Don't worry about it. It will make sense eventually. And I mean eventually. Okay, so here they are put together. So what's different about my chart is I'm what you would call a reflector. And that's when you look up your type, you'll get either reflector, manifestor, generator, manifesting generator, or projector. So what makes a reflect? I'm going to have the other types up here, but mine's just there's less noise on my chart, so it's a little easier to show. What's interesting about reflectors is that none of these centers are colored in. There is no definition. So I'm going to pull up a generator's chart, and see, I've got the bigger mandala here, so you can see this person. If you look for their design sun, they are in gate 56, which means they were born somewhere between a Leo and Cancer cusp. So if we just go back to the regular one. Now this is my friend Sonia. So what you can notice here is that these centers are, some of them, not all of them, some of them are colored in. So the way, this is what's called definition. So the way you get definition in a chart, I like to think of it as like an electrical charge, or say water. So if you look at up here, you have gate 63, and it's got a little red line coming from it. So if we went over here, we would find gate 63. See, there it is. So here's gate 63. So that lights up this guy. And then the thing across, like a bridge, is gate 4, and that's over here. Her moon is in gate 4. So because the 4 comes across halfway and the 63 comes across halfway, you end up with a channel or a bridge. And what happens is then these two centers now share energy and they light each other up. It's a bit like a video game. So if you look here, gate 11 is actually in both sides. So she's got gate 11 over here in Neptune. She's got gate 11 over here in Neptune. And then on the other side, 56 is coming across, meeting it halfway. So that's how these two centers get lit up. If you look at this center, it's got what we call gates. So 25 is reaching over, but 51 is not having it. Nothing's in 51. So this is why you get what's called a gate. So there's several gates up here because there's nothing joining this center to this one, or to this one, or to this one. This center remains undefined. Same with this guy, doesn't even have any gates. Same with this guy. Okay, so I'm going to go back to mine just so we don't have the distraction of color. So these are the chakras, and because human design is extra, there is some extra chakras. So this one is the crown chakra. This is where you have inspiration. This is the mind, or the third eye chakra. This is the throat. Now the heart center, they made into 2. So these 2 come from what was originally the heart chakra. So this is the G center. And I know that sounds a little bit dirty, or maybe that's just me. And this is where these gates are all related to love, over here is the ego center, and these are related closer to what you would call willpower, but not in what you think about the willpower to do push-ups or go on a diet, but more the sort of archetypal will. So then coming down here, this is the sacral center, and this is located, this is the creativity center. This is also an energy center. Below that is the root center. And then we've got these two guys on the side. This is the solar plexus. This is the red energy emotional center. And over here is the splenic center. And this, like I said, this is a new one that is not in the yogic or the Hindu chakra system. This one's related to, this is a survival one. So this has a lot of fear gates in it, and fear, as much as we don't like to experience, is handy for keeping us alive. So crown for inspiration, mind for thoughts, throat for voice and communication. And you can see the throat has the most gates off of it. There's lots of gates coming off the throat, whereas the crown just has 3 of them. And these gates will always be the same. Every chart will have these centers and these gates. These numbers on either side of it are what light them up. And when they join across, they make a channel. So see, I have lots of gates, but no channels. All right, so throat, G center, ego center, solar plexus, sacral, spleen, and root. Okay? So that's what will make you a different type. So I'm going to just show you the different types of charts. So mine's a reflector. It's really easy to see because nothing has definition. Nobody's colored in. And reflectors are about 1% of the population. And the handy thing about reflectors is we tend to reflect back what's in front of us. So you can often see yourself in a reflector. All right, now here's Sonia. Sonia is a generator. And if you look over here, this is generator. And even if you don't use this site, you'll still get, generators, but just you go over to the type. So that's the first thing you want to check. So what makes someone a generator? And there's only one way you can be a generator, and that's if your sacral center is defined. So there's lots of ways to define it. And this is why about 72% of the population are generators. So you can define it by connecting to the root, like she has. It can also connect to the spleen. It can also connect to the G center. It can also connect to the solar plexus. It can even go all the way up to the throat through this guy. So it can't get directly to the ego center, and it can't go above the throat, but there's lots of ways to activate it. So if you have this center activated or colored in, that automatically makes you a generator, in the same way that having no centers colored in automatically makes you a reflector. So then everything after this center becomes details. So I'll get back to, I know quite a few people were manifesting generators, so I'm going to show you the little difference there. Actually, wait, I'm going to do it this way. I have another idea. I'm going to show you a manifestor. So a manifestor, you can tell it's not a reflector because there are centers colored in. You can tell this person is not a generator because the sacral center is not colored in. What makes this person a manifestor is that the throat, which is what this guy is connected to one of these centers down here. So this is the solar plexus, and this is the throat. So when these two are connected, that person is a manifestor. So manifestor, no sacral, throat connected to something else. Okay? Now a manifesting generator is still a generator. Just as soon as this chart comes up, anytime. You cue everything up and you hope it's going to work. All right, let me go down here. Pull up another. Da, da, da. Okay, let's try that again. Okay, so this is a manifesting generator. So what's important in this description is a generator. And I know a lot of you are manifesting generators. So what makes someone a manifesting generator is they have the sacral center lit up. And this one is lit up actually by being connected directly to the throat. But they also have the throat connected to a motor. So in her case, the throat is connected to the sacral center. The throat is also connected to the solar plexus. So by having the throat connected to one of these bottom centers and having the sacral center lit up, that makes someone an emotional generator, a manifesting generator. Ugh. All right. And there, generators and manifesting generators go together as one type. But again, they're about 70% of the population. Manifesting generators tend to be the ones that like to hurry up and get things done and think about different ways to do it. Pure generators are not slow and steady, but they're steady. They have sustainable energy. They get things done. In both of them, you should stay. You don't go to bed before you're tired. You need to move. You need to work. And when you're tired, then go to bed. Then you're done. So the one other type is called a projector. And again, this is all deductive logic. Okay, so this person is a projector because, all right, not a generator because the sacral center is not defined. Not a manifestor because the throat is not defined. Not a reflector because there is definition in the chart. So this person is what's called a projector. And this one is kind of like a process of elimination. So no throat, no sacrum, that makes someone a projector. Unless they had none of these things, and then they would be a reflector. Okay, clear as mud, clear as mud. All right, I'm going to pop on, let me just see, stop. All right. So if you have any questions, okay, I don't see any questions. So I'm going to go back to squaring my sheet and I'm sharing my screen. And I'm going to just read one of the charts. Okay, so we're going to go, and this one will probably speak to more people because this is a generator, and most of you will be generators. All right, so what makes Sonia a generator is that she has this sacral center defined. And that's it. That's all you need to be a generator. What it also means is she will have sustainable energy. She gets stuff done. She will work generally, slow, steady, hard worker. When you have something like your root center defined, it also means that you are a reliable. This is a person, if someone's got a defined root center, this is a person who shows up on time. People with undefined root centers tend to feel a lot of pressure from the outside world to be on time, but might struggle a bit with it. And then here you can see that she's got definition between her crown, her mind, and her throat. And there's no other connection from here. So this is like one unit. And then down here, she's got the spleen, the sacral, and the root. And that's a second unit down here. So what that makes over here is what's called a split definition. And that's just because there's two circuit sets here. So this is one set, and this is a second set. And what's interesting about people who have split definitions is that they are here to teach the rest of us about relationships. They are the ones who are really good at being in relationship. People with single definition or with no definition really do well to learn from people with split definition. So I'm going to show you I'll show you a single definition. So this is a manifesting generator. This is actually my daughter. And you can see that the circuit here, solar It's not solar plexus. The sacral is connected to the throat, which is connected to the solar plexus, which is connected to the ego center. It is one circuit. So this is what you call single definition. Single definition people are usually pretty good on their own. They absolutely can be in a relationship. I'm not saying anybody can't be in a relationship. They will always have their own thing. They'll always want to be doing their own thing. They'll always have their own identity. Whereas a split definition has areas in the chart where other people can connect energetically to them. So I'm not even going to go there right now. Okay, so the big thing about a generator is we talk about strategy and authority, strategy and authority. So Sonia is what we call a pure generator. And all that means is how she makes decisions. And all the types will have their best way to make decisions. She's what you call a pure generator or a sacral authority, which means she has a lot of wisdom in her body already. Now she might, and we like to do this, we like to think that we can think our way through things, that we can get something done if we think hard enough about it. And actually, if you've ever read The Untethered Soul, if you've done any sort of look into mindfulness, you might realize that your thoughts really aren't necessarily accurate. Thoughts arrive in your head constantly. And when you try to think your way through things, oftentimes you end up pretty frustrated. And for someone like Sonia, who has this sacral definition, the wisdom is not in her head, it is down here in her body. And the way to access that is not through, you would ask her yes or no questions, but the best way for her to respond would not be with yes or no, because that's getting into your left hemisphere. That's using your thinking. That's using your brain. You want to get into the nonverbal wisdom in the body. So when someone has sacral authority, which is how she makes decisions, and different charts will have different authorities, and that's one thing that we would cover if we read your chart, she would respond to yes or no questions with a mm-hmm or a mm-mm or a mm. And what that does is it takes language out of it. So you get out of your head and you get into the wisdom of your body. So that's the best way for her to make decisions. And when she's thinking about, when she's thinking or she's trying to make a decision, if she gets a friend who can ask her yes, no questions, she might actually be really surprised to know what she thinks about some things. All right, so we've got the type, which is a generator. We've got the authority, which is the sacral, the And the other thing, the strategy, the way generators work in the world is they need to be in response to something. So at work, it's a good idea for her to always be in response to things that are needed. In relationship as well. The handy thing about being a generator is there is always something to respond to. If the room is too hot, you turn on the air conditioner, you open a window, you're always in response to something. It's not a great profile to initiate brand new things, but if you have something that you want to try, what you can do is you can ask people and say, I'm thinking of doing this or that, and people might say, hey, we'd like you to do that, and now you're in response to it. So it would be a correct way for you to do it. And if that sounds confusing, that's okay. Like I said, give it some time. The other thing, the way she knows that she's in flow or that she's doing things that are correct for her. And when you're correct, it's basically you're aligning your frequency with a universal frequency, and then things start to line up. So when she feels satisfied, it's like, oh yeah, job well done. That was really satisfying. That's great. Then she knows that what she's doing is working well. If she's feeling really frustrated, then it's like that's a sign that she's either trying to initiate something, or she's not responding to something, or she's trying to be something other than a generator. And these are mindfulness tools. So these are just ways that you can figure this out. So that's the big pictures here. Now, with each of these centers, if they're colored in, it said they have definition. If they're not colored, they don't have any definition. So if you go back to me, nothing colored in. So no definition. So all these open areas, any open areas that you have in your chart are areas that you're receptive and able to be conditioned in. Oh my, there goes the phone. So you can see in my chart, while I'm open and shiny and all of that, there's a lot of places in here where I can take energy from somebody else and think perhaps that it's me. And when, the first 7 years of our life as a child, you don't know you don't know what's you and what's your parents. It's all seen as one thing. And after about 7 years, you get an idea that you actually can think on your own, or your thoughts are just yours. But in those first 7 years is where a lot of conditioning happens. So I'll go back to Sonia here. In Sonia's chart, because her crown and her head are both defined, she's going to be pretty comfortable. She's going to know how she thinks. So she'll be a little more comfortable with that. She is less susceptible to, I call it the big junk mail, spam folder thoughts of the world. She is less susceptible to that. And again, here with your throat, if your throat is colored in or defined, you have a reliable, consistent way of communicating. And with any of these things, if I'm saying, that's not me, I'm looking at my chart, I'm not like that, you might want to ask somebody, and they might say, oh yeah, that's totally you. So I'm going to just stick with her defined ones here for a second. Like I said, people with a root center tend to be on time. They don't tend to feel pressure from the outside world as much. And splenic center, you can have quite a bit of intuition, because intuition is something that can be associated with knowing something at a primal level before it gets up into your conscious mind. So the definition in the spleen, and I'm not going to get into what all these numbers mean on a reading today, but can mean that she might be more in tuned with her intuition. And once she really gets tuned into the wisdom in her body, she can get wisdom from her solar plexus. She can also notice intuitive hits that she might get from her spleen. And intuitive hits are really easy to see after they've happened and you've ignored them. The trick is to pay attention when they arrive. All right, so we're going to go to her 3 open centers here. So she has a completely open. There is absolutely no gates coming off here. This is the solar plexus, and this is an emotional center. So one of the things that is probably true about her is she's a pretty even-keeled kind of person. She's not going to be someone who has a temper. She is not going to be someone who tends to lose their temper, tends to get angry quickly. We all know people like that. I would say, looking at this, Sonia is not one of them. And again, here is the ego center. Now, this is also, the other thing about this open center is that and if she's going, well, no, I feel all sorts of stuff. What can happen is, especially since it's wide open with no gates, you see how this center has gates, but is still undefined, is that you can take in other people's emotions and then think they're your own, and you can actually amplify them. So if you have this center open and you don't find that you feel steady and pretty even-keeled most of the time, it's probably because you are pulling in emotions from other people. And then the trick is, again, to get into the wisdom in your body, get out of your head, and realize that that's not you. So again, a completely open ego center is someone who will be susceptible to somebody else's willpower, and that can be good or bad. But she is also probably not someone who is going to be especially ego-driven. She is not going to be especially pushy. So, like, I mean, with these two open centers, what I see is someone who is pretty even-tempered and not caught up in ego. And if she's experiencing something different from here, it is probably people around her or energy that's not hers. The open G center here, so she's got gates coming off of here, but the center is still open, so it's not as susceptible to conditioning. But this just means that she might not have a consistent expression or feeling of love. And while she will reflect love to other people, and other people might feel quite loved when they're around her, she's not always sure of that in herself. And the other thing that I think is interesting about her chart, this area of the chart that I'm circling that goes from the throat, these three gates into the G center, and then these, well, actually channels, these three channels going down to solar plexus. This whole thing, when you are making a team, if you're going to, you want to hire people, what you want is to, when you put people together, to have them complete these things. So, we talk about the body and the mind joining across and making a channel. When you're with other people, you can create, you can make a combined person chart. So what was really interesting about Sonia is that these gates up here are leadership gates. This is a leadership gate. So someone who is a manager or a leader should have these gates. Someone who is a really good team member but needs the guidance of a leader should have these ones. So looking at this whole thing, and this is part of the reason I hired Sonia, is that she runs on time. She is not as likely to get caught up in emotions or ego. She has a lot of skills, but is really good about, she works well in a team. And especially when I look at my own chart, we actually work well together in a team together. And she's not as susceptible from pressure, from other people's thoughts and from other people's timelines. So, and what's been lovely is that is exactly my experience with her. Now, the rest of it on here, and like I said, she has a split definition, which means she does really well with relationships. And with any of these charts, what they are is our potential. So if you're, listening to a thing about your chart and you're going, well, that's totally not me. We have, choices in front of us. We have, like I talk a lot about the master path, the student path, the shadow path. So each one of these gates, each one of these centers, each one of these designs has a master path and has a shadow path. And oftentimes, not oftentimes, pretty much the only way to get to a master or a gift path is working through the shadows. So if you're not experiencing what you might see in a chart, know that it's your potential, and it's up to you if you decide you want to look into it. Okay, so I'm not going to do any more about this one right now, but the next thing that we would get into would be the profile, which is here. And that just tells you what kind of generator you're playing in the world. You would look at the incarnation cross, which tells us the life, sort of the path you were meant to travel, your life purpose here. And then down here, you can see these are the channels. And so this is a channel 28 to 38. And if you go over here, that's the struggle channel. And it's just, they're named from the I Ching. The 3254 is the transformation channel. So these channels will also give layers to your chart. Okay, so let me stop that. Come back over to StreamYard. And I don't know if anybody saw this or not, but it is going to go up. And I believe it got recorded. So what I'll do is I'm going to talk about different types. But if you have any questions about human design, they're mowing outside. shoot me a message, and we can look at different charts. We can look at different types. I can do this on my Tuesday night show. And if you're still here, Monday through Friday next week from 6 to 7 is going to be my training. And part of it will be, we will look at your human design charts in it, is in a way to sort of figure yourself out. All right. It's getting really loud here. All right. So I will check in with you guys later. Have a great night, and we'll talk soon.